for mobile home park owners and mobile home park vendors and managers. I want to, today our guest is Mark Borchardt, Regional Manager for Stevens Homes and Communities. And today our topics are getting the home sites into compliance, getting the residents to clean, fix, repair, paint their yards, decks, skirting, homes, and so forth. And also the second part will be 100% rent collections every month from everyone, from all the tenants. So we'll start the interview with Mark here shortly, but I wanted to make an announcement, a couple of announcements, and one of them is that next Thursday, which will be May 25th, our guest will be Gene Trowbridge, and Gene is an attorney from California. His company is crowdfunding, and he's going to talk to us about raising money to buy real estate investments and doing it the legal way and staying out of trouble. So you don't want to miss Gene Trowbridge's talk about raising funds for parks. Also want to remind our listeners of December 10th and 11th, the Owners Symposium here in Cedar Rapids, where we will be talking about discussing such things as capital gains, alternative investments when you sell a real estate asset, what to do with the funds, some estate planning, and we'll also do a mobile home park owners workshop where if you bring any of your financials, you'll leave with a estimated value of what your park would sell for in today's market, today's conditions. We are continuing to see very, very strong prices for parks, and we're also seeing the demand escalate too. So those two things go hand in hand. There's a lot of buyers for parks, which is causing the park prices to rise. And the second component of that is the interest rates are still quite low, and lenders are still quite eager to make loans to buyers for mobile home parks. So that's, causing quite a strong market for people selling their parks. So without any further ado, I want to introduce Mark Borchardt. Mark's been with the Stevens Homes and Communities for about 18 months. Prior to that, he had worked for over 25 years in the retail business, and he has found property management to be different than the retail business in some ways, but also similar in ways. And the similarities, of course, are working with all kinds of customers and many employees, and having to continually hire, replace and retrain and hire new employees. And so he's learned to, that's been a good background for him in getting the cooperation of residents. And so I want to start out by asking Mark, why does it matter if homes look good or the yards are cleaned up? I mean, you drive through a lot of communities. I drive through a lot of communities. There's a great many parks out there where the lots are kind of junky looking, and I can tell you that sometimes those parks sell for as good of a price as one that's more picked up. So why does it matter that we enforce the rules on the tenants?
Sure. Well, good afternoon, everyone. And Yeah, as far as the importance of why the park needs to look good. I mean, I think there's several factors there. I mean, it's kind of like uh, if you're looking for, it's kind of like that first impression when you go in for an interview. So if you have vacancies in your park and people are driving through your communities, looking at the homes that are available, or possibly thinking they might like to live in that area. It's kind of that when they drive in, it's kind of that first impression they're going to give of what they see in your park. I mean, if there's a bunch of trash in the yards or toys laying around or the streets aren't in good shape, that's the impression they're going to get. And I think as far as for the residents, it's also important. I mean, that's their home, that's where they live every day. So I would say that the way a park looks has a lot to do with the actual residents, how they feel about the park and how they react to it. So if it's something where as they're driving to their home, they see a lot of other yards that are messy and garbage around, toys in the yard, hasn't been mowed, or the mobile home, their neighbor's mobile home is all caked in algae and grime and stuff on the outside. That's that's not going to necessarily inspire them to maintain their home. I mean, there's always going to be people that take care of their home no matter what, but it's going to be it's going to kind of help set the tone how people feel about the park.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. And years ago when I got into this business, at our company back then, we felt that it was our job, much like a residential neighborhood, where people, when they own their mobile home, which I think the majority of parks, the residents do own their homes. That's changing some. That's a very market-driven, phenomena when you can't sell the home, so you end up renting the homes or doing rent-to-owns. But we always felt that our job was to help the homeowners maintain the values of their home, because someday they might want to sell their home. We hope that nobody moved out, because once we approved them, we felt we had a really good tenant. But just like in a residential neighborhood, we felt that when people kept their home sites, everybody kept their home sites neat and picked up, and the homes in good repair on the exterior, that helped our residents, or our customers, maintain the value of their homes, so that if they did have to sell, they could sell for the most amount of money. I think that's something we don't really think about too much. I think that changed when the consumer financing went away. And so I know you found some effective strategies to work with the tenants to get their homes looking good, or the tenants who have over time gotten out of compliance. And years ago when I got into the business, somebody told me this theory, and it was the person who told me this was Chrissy Jackson, who owns a couple of parks in Florida, but in her career has owned quite a few parks, and also has worked for some of the large portfolio companies as a trainer of managers and as a regional manager. And what she said was that when a park starts to, or either a home site or a park starts to decline, in the appearance and of the homes and the park, that once it starts to go down that decline, that to turn it around, it takes 1 year to turn it around for every year it's been in decline, which kind of makes sense. If you think about it, if you own a park or buy a park that the roads are in bad shape, and a lot of the homes have debris and the skirting needs to be replaced, or um, decks need railings or paint, or the homes need painted. It sort of, I think that's a good rule of thumb. So tell us some of your key ways that you've been able to get your tenants to comply.
Okay. Well, I guess first off, I'd like to tell a little story just before I go into kind of that. So, Joanne had purchased a park in Wisconsin before I came on board, and so I wasn't there at the very beginning, but I know I have seen some of the pictures of what they had to deal with in some of these homes that were there, and some were pretty horrendous. And so they got rid of some of the people that weren't taking care of their properties, and refurbished the homes. That was a big investment on Joanne's part, but got these homes refurbished. And now, by doing that, in the last the last 18 months I've been on board, we have vendors that compliment on how much nicer the park is. Like she said, this has taken a couple years, but they compliment how nice the park looks compared to how it used to. The residents are much happier as far as the quality of candidates that were getting into the park. And just the part that I really like, we've had one property that in the last 3 months we've had 3 tenants in there, just because we had good tenants, but one had a family issue where they had to move to take care of a relative. Another one moved in, and then because of a job had to move away. But because of the image that this park has within the community, all 3 times when the old resident moved in, the next resident was already in place and ready to move in the next day. So that makes life so much easier on the bottom line, and everyone else's lives easier when your park's in high enough demand because of what people have seen of the condition of it. So I just wanted to kind of.
I want to just interrupt you on that point. Do you think when the homes look better, or the park has a better reputation, do you think that helps you? How does that help you get better tenants? Or are you getting better tenants, or more applicants, or how would you describe?
Yeah, well, we're definitely getting more applicants. So we're getting more applicants. So then you have a much broader base to select from, as far as going through your different criteria of income and their past history and background checks and all that. But so yeah, we're getting much higher for every. I mean, this is a small community, and for every home we get at least 20 people that apply for it.
Wow.
So you get
20?
Yeah, 20. Yeah, at least 20 people that are applying to, wanting to look at the home or even apply for. Not out of those 20, maybe 15 will apply, but usually we've got it rented fairly quickly just because of the quality of applicants we're getting. And
that's pretty good.
Yeah. So a lot of it has to do. I mean, when they drive through the park to look at the home and we've advertised it, they like what they see, so that gets them excited about it. The home's in good shape, so that there again, gets them fired up and to move forward with the process. So it kind of keeps the ball rolling. They're not. It's not so much. It's like, well, this might be a good option. Let me do some looking around. It's more like, I saw it, I like it. How can I get in there? And that's usually the case. I usually have a couple people that are always, I got the money right. I got the money today. Can I move in? Type of situation. So that's the benefit of doing those things. That's where it's gotten the point it's gotten to now. So, and kind of how we've gotten there as far as compliance wise, we will, with the park managers, like, we'll have each week they're responsible for, like, either through a video or through pictures, providing information back to Joanne and I on how the parks look, so that we can even if we're from afar, we still have a good idea about what the property's looking like, what the homes are looking like, if people are keeping up on their properties. When the property managers are doing this, as they see issues of homes that are non-compliant, then they will issue a notice of rule violation, and they'll mark on there as far as what the issue is, give them a time frame as far as when that's to be completed, and then their job is to follow up to make sure that got taken care of. Now, what we found by doing this, probably you're going to have about 75% of people are usually going to take care of the issue. And the way we do it, not only do they get the notice, but we take a picture of let's say if someone has, let's say they've had some trash, some trash bag on their deck, and maybe they've got some skirting that needs replacing, so we'll picture that. And so we'll give them, they'll get a copy of the notice, they'll get a copy of those photos, and also we'll highlight in the rules, we'll highlight that as far as what the rules and regulations are stating, what the condition of the home is supposed to be based on the rules, and give all that to that resident. And it's not bad to hand out those rules again anyway, because everyone gets the rules when they move in. But what's the reality of how many people can even find those 6 months to a year down the road? So giving them another set of rules doesn't hurt anything. And if nothing else, if they know, I guess they know that our property managers are following up on a regular basis. They're going to be held accountable to follow the rules that they agreed to follow, and it makes things a lot easier. So.
And Mark, before you continue, I wanted to ask you, so is this in the form of a process that you have as far as what the managers are expected to do in terms of pictures or video, and then the inspection notices and the picture, the copy of the page out of the lease or copy of the lease? How do you keep track of all these homes? Because you have quite a few home sites that you're overseeing.
Right. So yes, it is a process that we have set up, and so it's spelled out, kind of going through all those different points we talked about. And I guess one part I left off is they are required each week to also, we have a worksheet, an Excel worksheet on the computer where they have to enter in the home site, what the issue was, when the notice was given, if photos were given, copy of the rules, and then when the due date is on that. So that's a spreadsheet that we all have access to. So I'm able to follow up on all the parks as far as where they're at on, as far as tracking homes that are out of compliance. So we know when they received it, and then I'm able to follow up. And their job is after the due dates come by, they either check off either yes or no, it was taken care of. If it wasn't, what was their next step? In some cases, if it was a pretty good sized project that needed to be done, they made some pretty good success, but they weren't quite done by that time, we may just give a second notice, thanking them for what they've done, but just reiterating what needs to be done and coming up with another time frame for that. If we have someone who's just basically decided they're not going to bother to even take care of what needs to be done, then typically we'll just go to a 60-day notice, and a lot of times that will get their attention, or it may determine that they're not the right fit for the property. So
yeah, that's something that we've learned over the years too. When people sign a lease, and years ago when I used to actually sit with a tenant when they were moving into the park and have them sign the lease and give their deposit and pay their rent, I would have them actually initial each paragraph of the lease. And that was another idea I heard from Chrissy Jackson, was so that if later on there was ever any issue, they couldn't say, that they hadn't read the lease. Yep. Because you sat there right with them and had them initial each each clause of the lease.
Yep, and we don't necessarily have it. They do have to at least initial every page.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
we do have that information to show that, well, and they're always told, if you don't understand, don't initial until you understand what's going on or ask questions. But
and I know we've done quite a bit, or you've been overseeing home renovations. Can you think of any home renovation of a park-owned home or one of the new homes that you thought really made an impact to the other residents? Does anything come to mind of?
Well, I'd say one that we just acquired, like in the last couple weeks in one of our parks. It was our property manager's done a good job of it. So basically, he'd take, power wash the outside. It was a vinyl siding, but power wash the outside and the skirting, repainted the deck, removed a scraggly bush that was up by the deck, but to the stairs, clean the inside, and those are just basic things. But it really makes this home stand, pop and stand out. I mean, the fresh paint on the deck, the home being cleaned, and that just shows how basic it can be to just up the ante as far as how the homes in your park look. It does not take a lot to do that. And I guess I'd share something else we're trying this year too. We don't have the final results. It'll be a couple more weeks yet, but we tried this year too with we called it a spring cleanup contest, where we offered some different prizes to our guests or to the residents, and it was based off the fact of, take a before and after picture of your home, and then, as far as what improvements you do to it. And it could be something as basic as just, cleaning it or painting a deck or just picking up the yard. It could be any of those levels. So I think anyone who enters, there's some prizes where they're going to win if they go, everyone that enters is going to be into a drawing. So everyone has a chance to winning some of the prizes. And then we have our first, second, and third type cash prizes for the homes that look the best. But the whole idea of this is, we're looking to improve the appearance of the parks, and they get to have a little bit of fun with it, a chance to win some prizes. We'll share the pictures afterwards on our Facebook page with all the residents. But so I said we don't have the final results yet, but the goal of that is making sure. Well, and the other thing we said in the contest too is everyone had their homes, if it was needed, as far as pressure wash the outside of the home and the skirting by the middle of June. So any home that's not, then we have some vendors lined up that we will line them up to do that, and then just charge that back to the residents. So our goal is by the end of by summer of this year, all 400 properties that we own will have been power washed, and all the parks been power washed and cleaned up. And I guarantee you that's going to make a huge improvement just in the way the park looks just by doing that. We'll work with the residents. We've got some phenomenal prices that these people are doing, so it's very minimal cost. And even at that, we'll break it up over 2 or 3 months if need be to recover it. But so it's not a big burden on them, but I know they'll have pride in the way their home looks. They're going to feel better about it. The park's going to look better. It's just a win-win situation for everyone. So it'll be interesting a few weeks down the road here once we've gone through all that, what the final outcome is. So.
Right. And Mark, normally when someone buys a park, they want to retain the manager, and even if a park doesn't sell, there's a lot of parks where the managers have held that job for many years, and they do a good job, and they know their park very well. They know the residents, but enforcing the rules is something that has sort of fallen by the wayside. And I'll tell you, if I may, just a little bit of history. So this is going to sound like ancient history for anybody who hasn't been in this business, 15 years or newer to this business. But, up until about the mid to late 1990s, virtually all of the mobile home parks were close to 100% full. And so not only were they full or close to full, but most parks had a waiting list of tenants wanting to move in the event that a vacant site became available, or a tenant was moving and a home was coming up for sale. And part of the reason, it's twofold. There were a lot of retailers back then. So the retailers always, had customers that, wanted to buy a new mobile home, but the problem was, where would you put the new home? So the retailers were calling the parks almost weekly, maybe daily, saying, I have a buyer, if anything becomes available. So, so the managers knew that if they had any problems with a tenant maintaining their home or not paying their rent, they were going to be very, very stern about making sure that the tenant paid or that they complied with all of the rules. Pick up your, don't be putting that bag of garbage on your deck, or you're going to be getting a notice that could play out in an eviction. And so the tenants were much more, I want to say respectful, but it's even more, maybe even a little bit afraid of their managers, which that wasn't ideal either. But when you have a waiting list, do you think that makes the managers feel a little more emboldened to, by gosh, we're going to enforce these rules? So over time, as the consumer financing went away and so many homes moved out of the parks and there was a lot of vacancy, what happened was that managers and owners got a lot more worried about pushing the tenants. Sure, and so that what's involved, that's that's why we see so many homes where there's just all this stuff laying around, and the skirting is all dinged up or needs to be replaced, at least partially. So, but anyway, continue with how have you found success in working with the managers that you oversee?
Well, like we talked about before, the biggest part is having that process in place to follow. And we've had our ups and downs with it too. We've had where we've moved, several steps forward and then some steps back, as far as it's going to be something that has to be addressed on a weekly basis, as far as what the expectations are, and holding the property managers accountable, because everyone gets busy. They have different weeks that are, a lot of things going on, but as soon as you allow where they don't have to turn in their videos or their photos or turn in a report on the homes that they reviewed that week, then it can so easily start falling right back into where we're not following up on it. So that's been my biggest challenge, is just staying on top of just building that culture where it becomes a process every single day, every single week, as far as what the expectations are and how we're going to get there. And sometimes getting the property managers to see the full vision of what it can be. It's like I was talking about, we've had this conversation a couple times with our property managers of our plan by the summer of all those homes are going to be power washed and cleaned. And I know that could be kind of a lofty goal and a big step, and it's going to be some extra work up front. But I think as we're starting to gain some ground, they're starting to see how much that can make it look, how much nicer the property looks, and even the response from the residents too. So it's something you just got to stay on top of all the time. But
it is, and we have found that when we do own a home, it's very important that we make sure that our homes are looking as good as possible, or that they're being worked on, because we found it's very difficult to tell a resident they must comply with the rules in terms of the appearance of the homes, and our homes are out of compliance.
Yep.
And I've seen that. I've heard many park owners tell me that has misfired on them, that the tenants are very well aware of which homes are the park-owned homes, and what the park owner manager is or is not doing.
Yeah, those homes need to be the example of what you want everyone else to look like. So that's the key. So you gotta make sure your own house is in order before you go around addressing other ones. Yes.
I think what we're seeing too in the mobile home park business, and it probably started with the REITs, the real estate investment trusts, the publicly traded companies, and also the large portfolio owners, that there is more or less a new breed of asset managers, regional property managers, that is filtering down to the park managers. And these are people that maybe weren't necessarily, their first job wasn't in the park business. They weren't the proverbial diapered and duct tape people that, that a lot of the smaller park or larger park owners are, where you have a family, a 2 or 3 generation owned park or retail business. But they are very driven by processes and procedures.
Yep.
And so I'd like you to talk about, do you have written processes for what you expect the managers to do, and
Yep.
and a spreadsheet of what's happening with the homes, that
Yep.
so you can keep it all straight?
Yep, exactly. All these things we talked about they're all written out in our process. And what Joanne's touching on too, that's something you always heard in my previous life, like in retail. Every district manager I ever had, no matter which company I was working for, was always inspect what you expect. So, if you're the owner of a park or a property manager, if you're expecting certain standards within your park, that's what you need to inspect that whenever you're there. Is that being upheld? And if the owner or the property manager are not enforcing those rules, then homeowners see. I mean, you're on review every single day, so the homeowners see. I mean, if they're allowing other people to get away with breaking the rules, and that's the first thing that you're going to hear about. With, why you tell me to do this? So and so's not doing it, and so it's got to be fair and consistent, and you just got to be. That's why you need these processes in place, so everyone knows exactly what the goals are, how to achieve them, and how we're going to track those goals to do that. That's why we talked, like the spreadsheet we talked about before, so we know exactly where we're at. It does us no good to hand out a notice for someone because they need to paint their deck, and then they don't do it, and we never follow up, and it's just
There's no teeth in it.
yeah. And then all we've done is taught the resident that just ignore it, it'll go away.
Mm-hmm.
Don't worry about it. So they just need to know they agreed to maintaining their properties to a certain standard, and so they agreed to do that, and the owners and the property managers need to uphold those standards. So
yeah, well, in closing, we have our idea is that, to the degree that we can get all of the homeowners in compliance with the appearance of their homes, and also paying rent, which we didn't get to, so that'll be a different show, because Mark has some specific strategies and things that he does to get 100% rent collections every month. But ultimately, we want to save wear and tear on our managers, and we believe that when managers are having to deal with solving the same problems month in and month out, year in and year out, that's very wearing and kind of a burnout, a recipe for a burnout. So our goal is always to get as many homes into compliance as quickly as possible, because once they are, then it's much easier to manage that property than if you have a third or half of the homes that are out of compliance. Once they're in compliance, then it's much easier to maintain that for the manager and the regional manager. And tenants, I think Mark is finding that's why your applications in your calls are up, because people like to know what to expect when they drive into a park, whether they're going to apply to be a resident or they can tell just sort of intuitively, is this a park where they're going to enforce the rules or not?
Yep.
And it reminds me of two parks, both pretty similar in age, about the same size, and across the street from each other. One is just, when you drive through that park, you don't see hardly, it's rare that you see anything laying around. There's no 12 packs of beer on the deck, and the homes are in good condition. You don't see skirting with holes in it. Across the street, it's not bad. It's at all, but it's just very different, because when the owners, there were a lot of, the owners just didn't enforce the rules, from the get-go, and now, 20 years later, it still looks a little bit down in the heels compared to the one across the street. And they're not paying any more to their managers at the one that looks good than the one, that is more shabby looking. So it's just a
different expectations of standards.
Yeah.
And I would even argue that if someone's driving through your property, if you're that property on the one side of the street that's looking in fantastic shape, that's probably going to deter some people that are not. They probably know that trying to keep up to that standard is more work than what they want to do. So
yeah.
You probably don't even have to deal with
Yeah.
their application.
That's a good point. They're not going to put up with anything at this park. So they sort of self-select out, don't they?
Exactly. So I think that's one of those things that's hard to measure, because you probably never know it, but I'm sure it does happen.
So I want to thank Mark for his ideas and his tips and strategies and tactics. And we are going to put some of those things on the website on the Joanne and Stephen's website, and those will be the notes on how to get the strategies of how to get the tenants into compliance. So again, I want to thank our listeners, and next week will be Jean Trowbridge crowdfunding. My website for newsletters and also different articles is JoanneMStevens.com, and that's JoanneM and STEVENS.com. Thanks, everyone.